Today's video is going to be a somber one because we're going to be talking about a very real tragedy. Not actually, but I'm going to adopt a sarcastic tone like I am, so that's the premise of this bit. We on the left often talk about the economic circumstances of the poor or workers, but there's somebody we've been neglecting for far too long. A group of people who've been suffering, more so than any other during these hard times, who are barely able to get free money for nothing. Of course, I refer to landlords. Now, I've made my complaints about them in the past. We obviously don't see eye to eye, but I never wanted this. I know what it's like to get money for no reason. I get paid money for releasing 1, maybe 2 videos a week. I rely on that to pay my bills, to landlords mostly, but also to other people that own expensive things. So I can't imagine what it's like when Big Brother decides it doesn't care about you for some reason. It only seems to care about people without resources that make them rich for nothing. They just leave you behind just because nobody can pay you. You're left to survive somehow without them paying you. The world has gone mad. In the United States, and here in the United States too, Canada edition, eviction bans were put in place to keep thousands, potentially millions of people from being displaced from their homes during a plague that cost them their livelihoods. These screwball politicians figured they knew better than everybody else and said, oh, maybe it's a bad idea to make people who lost their jobs homeless in the middle of a global pandemic. Typical. They don't even help the landlords at all. They don't do nothing for them. They let these people defer their rent, but I don't see them deferring property taxes, except for, of course, they did. I think the situation is best summed up in this political cartoon by master craftsman and intelligent human being, Chip Bach. A reporter hovers over a disheveled man prone on a bench, a newspaper, the only thing sparing him from the elements. The reporter asks, "How did you become homeless?" The man replies, "Couldn't evict my tenant." Only then do we see, on the newspaper is written, "Biden extends eviction moratorium." Because if you think about it, an eviction moratorium is gonna, the thing that'll do, if you think about it, is it's gonna make people homeless. What a tour de force comic from good old Chip Bach, am I right? A true visionary. Notice how he justified the newspaper in the scene so we'd get the context that we did not need to understand the cartoon? A lesser cartoonist would just throw a sign in there, but not Chip Bach. Chip understands that this is a visual medium, and that's why he made the whole thing look like dog shit. Just made it awful to look at. And what a powerful message! It plays on your expectations, you see. You'd expect someone to become homeless for being evicted, which is natural and fine and not a problem at all. But this guy here, he became homeless because Joseph Hussein Biden took away his God-given right to kick a poor guy out of his house. The world is all topsy-turvy because now rich people might have to suffer the consequences they would normally, naturally, get to impose on other people. First, they came for the rich people, is also a thing Chip Bach said. And I could totally see this happening too, because if nobody can get evicted, it makes sense that this guy would get evicted. Because what this cartoon, it's very well thought out if you think about it. It's a very well thought out cartoon. But sadly, this tyranny is not confined merely to the minds of such brilliant satirists. I would like to read for you an editorial from Business Insider penned by millionaire CEO and landlord Julio Gonzalez. It's titled, "I'm a landlord with 24 properties. We're suffering during Biden's eviction ban too, and no one is helping." And if you were writing an article with a title like that, or dictating it as he did, what picture do you think you'd give to Business Insider to use? What picture do you think would inspire the most sympathy so that people could understand how much you were struggling? Because if it were me, I probably wouldn't have gone with the one where I'm standing in front of my private jet. I'm Julio Gonzalez, the CEO and founder of specialty tax engineering firm Engineered Tax Services. I also own 24 properties on the East Coast and have been a landlord for 20 years. The Biden administration's latest eviction moratorium, which lasts through October 3rd and covers most US counties, including mine, has led to difficult conversations difficult conversations. Why isn't someone doing something? Many of our tenants feel like they are in a dire situation. They feel like they're in a dire situation. That's one way to put it. Unfortunately, we as landlords are too. The landlords don't feel like they are, but the tenants feel like they are. That's interesting. And just get ready for the next paragraph because, oh boy, you'll probably cry. Have tissues handy, friendo. 20 of my properties are residential, and I currently have 4 tenants taking advantage of the federally mandated eviction moratorium. The moratoriums have led to a significant and negative impact in profitability for me. It's been a 15% loss in profit. Residents not paying rent essentially leads to free living, while landlords still have to pay for taxes, utilities, and more, except for when they don't, which is a lot of the time. The tenants just get to live for free, while the landlord has to pay a bunch of bills, and all they get in return is ownership of the property, any equity it generates, and all of the rent money, because the tenants still have to pay the rent money legally. They still have to pay the money, even if they can't be forced out of their homes for not doing it right now. But I don't see why Julio's investment portfolio should suffer simply because of the economy. Have you ever heard of somebody losing money on an investment? It's absurd. Well, not losing money, I guess, but not getting it quickly enough. That shouldn't be allowed. I mean, if the investments make money, it's not like you'd get to keep that, right? And surely the tenants who aren't millionaires should be the ones to shoulder that burden, I think makes sense. We've been fortunate to be in a position where we can sustain no income. And we try to be very compassionate and understanding for our tenants. We're trying to extend their leases so we can make enough over a period of time to make up for some of these losses. But most people don't have that kind of staying power. Whew, quite a situation. Did you hear that? Lucky him that he can sustain no income. That's great, especially because he's only lost 15% of his profits. Also, those people still have to pay him that money. Also, that's not his only income. He's the CEO of, in his own words, the largest specialty tax and consultative firm to the CPA community nationwide. He must be really scraping by, and for what? To accommodate people who lost their jobs and can't pay rent to him? How's that fair? Why should he be punished for the misfortunes of others when he has so much money? I see that with my clients every day. They're no longer able to make their payments. They're liquidating their properties. They're selling them to private equity. It's very tragic. And while we've been able to sustain our properties, we have stopped all improvements and renovations because we don't have the capital. We've been very cautious of all of our income, capital, and cash because we don't know if the moratorium is going to continue or if this pandemic is going to continue. Joe Biden, have a heart. You're forcing this millionaire CEO to be cautious with his capital. He hasn't been able to renovate any of his properties. Put these people on the street immediately so that the man with the private jet can renovate his properties. We've really tried to be tight with our budget to get through the eviction moratorium. But really, how many more months can we go? Have you tried eating less avocado toast? Maybe skip the latte and have coffee at home. Another thing you could try is selling any private jets or excess homes you find yourself to be in possession of. First, there needs to be a program in place to help not only those being evicted, but also the landlords. The government should give landlords a moratorium on bank loans, taxes, and utilities. Most of the landlords I speak with and know are really struggling because of these moratoriums, financially hurting with no relief in sight. They were struggling before, but this most recent moratorium may bankrupt them altogether. No one is raising a finger to help. I would like to propose that we go one step further. What if we put a moratorium on all expenses? What if, instead of relying on people having enough money for something, we distributed goods and services on the basis of human need, like from each according to their ability to each according to their need? Seems like that would solve everybody's problem here. Wouldn't have to worry about the private equity firms in that situation. Is there a reason why that wouldn't work for you, Julio? The moratorium ties the hands of hardworking landlords like me, and it totally disrupts the real estate market. As some landlords are losing their properties, private equity firms are winning out. They can take advantage of the situation by coming in and taking these properties from the bank for pennies on the dollar because they have the low cost of capital, low debt, and staying power. What a pickle! Because it kind of seems like the problem here is that, and correct me if I'm not understanding something, the problem here is that only some people have access to home ownership. Like the problem is that only very rich businesses will have access to a resource that everybody needs to live, right? That's the problem you're establishing? Gee, real noodle scratcher, that one. One solution, just off the dome here, is that maybe we shouldn't allow people or businesses to profit merely off of ownership of a resource, because these companies aren't building the houses, they're just buying them, creating no value. Because I guess if I think about it, really, what you're saying here is that labor creates all value. So it seems like the people that do that should be the ones to reap the dividends, but also everyone's labor is only possible because of everyone else's, and we have enough shit to go around. So man, maybe everybody should just get what they need. Maybe that could be how we do things. Is there a reason that wouldn't work for you, Julio? Second, proof of hardship could eliminate some of the questions landlords like me have about our tenants. We see that there's an incredible number of open jobs and communities are opening up in spite of the COVID-19 Delta variant. It's likely that our tenants have received jobs and are now working. Well, there you go. There are plenty of jobs, and if you're not willing to go out and do some menial, pointless task in the middle of a global plague, the latest strain of which is far more contagious and still spreadable even if you're fully vaccinated, then I don't see why you should get the luxury of shelter. Our tenants don't have to provide any documentation to us, so they could be working. And we see that they're buying new goods, but they're not paying rent. We're not there yet, but if it becomes clear people are taking advantage of the moratorium, we will have to discuss action with our legal team. I mean, it's black and white, can't you see how unfair this is? He's not sure yet, but it's possible that some of his tenants, who have bought new goods, by the way, are able to pay him and aren't. Again, he doesn't know that for certain, but it's possible, isn't it? And then he'd have no recourse except that he just said he would pursue action with his legal team. So I guess he kind of does have a recourse there. Huh? Weird. Because from the outside, kind of seems like this isn't a big problem for him at all. And that maybe in a huge crisis that he should be the rich landowning assholes who have to foot the bill rather than everyone else. Like the rest of the article is about what a good job he does helping his clients navigate these situations and how he helps small landlords and other business owners cut their tax bill. So he's a real impartial person to ask about this kind of thing. And it's very good that Business Insider published what he said verbatim without any qualifying information, as though we should take his concerns seriously whatsoever. I think Julio put it best himself on Twitter. The difference between capitalism and a welfare mentality: when you buy something, you put money in people's pockets and give them dignity for their skills. When you give someone something for nothing, you rob them of their dignity and self-worth. And that says it all, I think. That's why everybody hates getting gifts. And I don't think anybody should get things for free, which is why people should have to pay him because he owns a house. Because they shouldn't get something for nothing. They don't even own houses. He's taking a risk, which is why he gets the money. And it's also why the government should give him money, because his business isn't profitable anymore. Or at least stop protecting people that aren't yet paying him for owning a house simply because they probably can't. How's that fair? You know, normally when I transition to the eyeball zone, I like to do it in an upsetting way. I want it to be scary and weird, but I'm very frustrated by today's topic, so I'm going to go ahead and just ease us into the eyeball zone. Let's just dip our toes into the eyeball zone. Just stick our toes in eyeballs. Like imagine the iris of a giant eyeball is a lake, a temperate lake that you can dip your toes into. It doesn't hurt the eyeball. You're not hurting anybody. You're just dipping your toes into a giant eyeball in a relaxing way, in a way that relaxes you. But each time it blinks, you can feel both of the eyelids close against your foot, and the eyelashes kind of tickle your legs, so you try and like pull your foot away, and the more you struggle, the deeper your foot sinks. And then you feel yourself being pulled in. Slowly at first, but then faster and faster, until you cross the event horizon of this yawning void. And as you watch the light fade from view, you fall ever deeper into silent darkness. Hello and welcome to the Eyeball Zone. Here in the Eyeball Zone, we take a deep breath and count to 10, and also highlight small leftist content creators in need of eyeballs on their work. Okay, now that everybody is relaxed, I can introduce today's eyeballee. Nowhere Grotesk in their series, Your Island is a Commune, is a critical analysis of the Japanese anarchist movement, social ecology, and urbanization through the lens of Animal Crossing: New Horizons. And I don't know if I need to say more than that. Most of you, I assume, have already left this video to go watch that one. Good choice. Sometimes YouTube videos can be a little much. Like the ones that are well made are sometimes too frantic and erratic, and that can be a little overwhelming. Somehow, this series blasts your noggin with a ton of information while still making you feel like you're just talking about a video game. Just an informative, chill vibe. The link is in the description. Maybe go check it out, why don't you? Hey, do you have a small leftist project you'd like to see featured here in the Eyeball Zone? Send me no more than one email to thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com with pertinent details like your pronouns and the word eyeball somewhere in the description. And maybe, if you do that, you'll find yourself trapped here in the Eyeball Zone. Can you believe some people out there think that I'm snide? Where do these cretins get this idea? I'm a pleasant peach. Show me what a pleasant peach I am by liking this video and subscribing to me here on youtube.com. And also, if you're so inclined and have the means and you won't miss any of it, you can also give me money at patreon.com/thoughtslime. I urge you not to do that if you can't or don't want to. Also, I'd make videos at Scaredy Cats, which is horror videos on Tuesdays. Go watch those too. Those will spook you up real good. Halloween's coming up. Don't you want to get spooked up and down? Haven't been streaming as much this month. Gonna get back to that every 8 p.m. on Thursday, Eastern Standard Time. Starting next week,